I want you to create a function.
And I
need your cheat sheet, dude.
I do need my cheat sheet.
So, hey, I'm Tyler Lemke, and I'm a full stack software developer who helps other people change careers as well as level up their careers. And today we're with Kenny Seaver. Is it Seaver? Seaver? I forget.
Yeah, Seaver.
Seaver, cool. So we know each other from years ago, and I'll just let you introduce yourself, Kenny, and kind of give us a little background about you and why you're interested in learning how to code.
So, like I said, my name is Kenny Seaver. I am an environmental professional. I currently work for a small environmental consulting firm. I'm the air quality program manager. And one of the things that I have been really working hard on is finding ways to automate a lot of simple tasks. And so I've been interested in coding for the ability to build very simple things from automating a task in Microsoft Excel. I've used a little bit of Visual Basic to now what I've been moving more towards is trying to get a fully automated database that's going to manage and house all of our information. And so I don't have any formal learning. Everything that I've done is self-taught or a lot of time spent on Google trying to find someone who's written code that I can then copy paste and then adapt to suit my needs. And so I just what I'm really interested in is learning a lot of the syntax and the nuances of code and kind of understanding a little bit more of it aside from the little snippets that I've found on Google trying to find something to suit my needs.
Okay, cool. So what languages have you said you're using some databasing stuff? Is that with like Access or?
Microsoft Access primarily. I've done a little bit in MySQL. And as I was exposed to some of that, I went and found a tutorial on how to do HTML and PHP and CSS. Yeah. But I got like 12 minutes into it and realized that they were speaking to someone who at least understood the language they were talking and had no idea what they were doing things. And I could follow along because they're telling me what to type, but I didn't know why or what I was typing or what I was telling it to do with each line that I was writing. And so it was cool to see it working, but I had no reason why. Like they were giving me a fish, not teaching me how to fish.
Well, cool. I hope we can do a little bit of that today and not go down that path as much. So, awesome. So let's jump right into it. So JavaScript's a really good general purpose language, and you can do a lot of things with it. I don't know if it's going to help you specifically with automating all the stuff you want to do, but you can basically program on any platform with it. But let's go ahead and jump right into the content. So let me share. I'm going to share my screen. Yay. All right. So JavaScript, basically. Okay. So I like to think that there's like 3 building blocks or basic concepts you want to say of programming. And specifically with JavaScript, it's the function. Sometimes it's called a method, and if you're using object-oriented programming, functions are ways to organize your code, and we'll get a little bit deeper into that. You need data, right? If you don't have data, you can't do anything with your programming. There's nothing you can do. So, and then the third building block or principle is that you need logic, right? So you need a way to traverse the data that you have and make something happen. Any questions with those concepts?
Mm-mm.
Okay, because we're gonna get a little bit deeper into them. So functions are basically ways to organize your code, reuse your code, and also make your code easier to understand. And so I'm actually going to jump out here really quick. We're going to go right into, this is what's called a coding sandbox. Have you seen one of these before?
I have. I don't know. I've never used one. I've seen them used, but
Right.
never.
So it's basically just a place where we can start coding without having to worry about anything. So one of the other concepts, as well as the console here, and I think I have a slide for that. I don't know if we skipped it over, but if you've ever used like DOS back in the day, console is just where you get text output. And because we're not using HTML and CSS, this is where we're going to see what we're doing with our program. So when I talk about a function, functions basically, when you initialize a function or create a function, you type in this keyword, right? So languages will have a lot of different keywords that they'll use to know what you're doing, okay? So when I create a function, I always have to say, put the keyword function in there. Can you see this all right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So it starts off with that keyword, and then I can name that function something. So I can name it like, what's up, right? It's not a very good name. And then we have these parentheses here. These just always have to be there. And they actually have, we might go over it a little bit later if we have time. But just know that those always have to be there. Otherwise, it doesn't know that it's a function.
Okay.
Or at least it will throw an error at you. The other thing that has to be there is these squiggly braces. They call them handlebars, mustache, whatever you want to call them. Those are basically the body of the function. Okay, so this is saying, here's my function. This part is saying, here's my function. And this part is saying, this is what it does.
Okay.
Okay, we haven't
everything
put it
inside of the braces is going to be part of the function.
Right. So everything, yeah. So our function can literally do something like this. And the console.log is basically a built-in function inside of JavaScript that lets us see something inside the console.
Okay.
So console.log, I can say, well, what's up, Kenny? Right?
Okay.
So I also put these semicolons at the end of each line. And that's basically to say I'm done with this line. This is very high level, so I'm not going to go into the exact specifics of each thing, but I'll try to tell you briefly why it's there.
Okay.
Do you have any questions on this so far?
So the semicolon is actually one thing that I've always wondered why. Like, I understand that they have like separators to say, here's the end of a sentence or here's the end of a thing. Is there any particular reason why it's a semicolon, or that's just what they picked?
It's the character that they picked.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's like they could have picked another character. And so the little I know about programming languages and how they're parsed basically by the computer, and it looks at specific what's called tokens, and when it finds a token, it knows what to do with it. So this is like a special token. It says, okay, this is the end of line, so I know that there's going to be a new line that has some new code coming in, and there's hope that answered that.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Cool. So do you know how we actually call this function, or how we would execute it?
Nope.
So we actually do it with the name. So with the name and then the parentheses, and you can see what's up, Kenny comes out.
Okay.
Pretty cool. That's the basics of a function. Okay. So, and we'll get a little bit more into it, but that's how you make one and how it runs. the next part is the data. So there's variables and there's types of data, or types of variables, right?
Mhm.
And I like to think of variables as named containers. So basically, it's if you have a box, right? Let's say you're moving and you have a box. You can put anything inside of that box, right? If you can put your laptop or packing supplies or whatever you want to put in there. And usually write on the side what's inside of it. You'll write like kitchen supplies, or you might write just the laptop on there.
Mhm.
Now that box can hold different things though. And variables basically allow us to create data and manipulate it. So
Okay.
and it holds different types of values. So have you heard of numbers or strings before? I'm sure you've
Mhm.
heard of numbers, right?
Yep.
Have you heard of a string?
Yep.
Okay. So what is a string to you?
It's just it's a string of letters or numbers or characters that it can hold spaces and everything else. It's
Right.
a
So it's
written out.
it's an unbroken line of characters, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's called strings, because it's just all together.
Yep.
Exactly. So we also have operators, okay? So operators actually act on those variables. So let me back out really quick because we kind of jumped over. This is how you create a variable. You can use either the keyword var or let, and there's some nuance in there. I'm not going to go over what that is, but we're going to use var for this example, which some people might hate. But let's see. I'm going to comment out. Comments, do you know what comments are? Comments are just
Mhm.
code that it's basically a line that's for humans to read.
Yes.
And I'm actually, since I put these two forward slashes, it's not going to read this code. So it's going to stop throwing things to the console, which is really distracting. Um, so you can create a var. So I can create a var like friend, right? And then I can put your name. I can put your name in here, right? So
Okay.
that's basically how I create a variable called friend, and it has a string Kenny in it. And I can reference that variable just by using it. I could pass it into a function, for example. It won't do anything here, but you can reference this later, and we'll show you how that works. Any questions on that so far?
Nope.
Cool. So let's go into operators. So operators act on data. So you've probably heard of plus, minus, multiply, divide, all those good ones. But there's actually assignment operator, and we used it just a second ago. And that's saying the thing on the left-hand side is contains the thing on the right-hand side. Okay? So it actually assigns a value.
Okay.
There's comparison ones, so less than, greater than, equal to, and not equal to. And then there's Boolean, which is Boolean logic. And I don't know if we'll get into that. But there's lots of operators in JavaScript. There's like 35 or 40.
Okay.
Any questions on operators?
Mm-mm.
Awesome. Conditionals. So have you heard of conditionals or if statements or switch statements, stuff like that?
Yep.
What do they do?
It gives you can start running the logic on it of, if A equals B, then we're going to do this, or if it equals C, then we're going to do this.
Right. So yeah, it lets us basically, it lets us have that logic portion that I was talking about, the three basic principles or building blocks, right, of coding. So, and I have this little example here people can look at, but I think you got the concept. So we'll move on to actually looking at it. I can get to my back here. So going to conditionals. So how do conditionals work in JavaScript? right? You've probably used them. You used them before with the VB or okay. And here's the weird thing with VB, and I actually started with VB as well, but VB has a funny thing where if you see the assignment operator here, this is actually assigns a value, but in VB, this will actually check for equality. But and I'll show you what that means. So if I have my if statement here, right? So if statements are kind of like, and we'll get back to that concept. I kind of jumped over it. Let's just focus on the if statement, and then I'll get back to that. So if statements are kind of like their own function, right? It has a keyword, parentheses, and then a block that you can run, which is the open and closing. And then you can put, it's optional, you can have an else, right? And in the previous slide, if this becomes true, if this is true, it's always going to run this first block. Otherwise, if it's false, it will run the second block. That's how it always works.
Okay.
But what does that look like? So let's say, is 2 equal to 1? What do you think? Does 2 equal 1?
Nope.
No. So which is it going to run? The if block or the else block?
Run the else block.
Right. Exactly. Perfect. So here's I want to kind of give you this because you have this background. I'm going to give you this differentiation. This little piece of information here. So, let's say we had. I don't have even a name, so condition. I'm going to call this condition. And you can put these parentheses, you can put basically your own variables. So I'm going to put a number here. This variable only applies to this function, okay? It's called a parameter. And you can pass that in when you call the function. So when I put in condition 2, this 2 gets passed into number, right? So number equals 2 at this point. So if I go use it down here, number, does the if or the else block run?
The if.
Right, that's because this is the equality and I'm checking for that. Now, what does this do? This is because you started with VB. What do you think that does?
That would do the same thing as like setting your condition 2 in the bottom one, wouldn't it? You said it's setting equality?
Yeah, so this actually assigns. This is not equality, this is assignment. So number becomes 2. So let me make it a different thing. Number is now 1. If I do this, and guess what it does? It always goes to the if block if I do that. So it's a really easy mistake to make if you start programming in JavaScript. So remember to use a triple equals. And you can actually fix that if you use something called use strict, I think. I don't know. Someone's gonna make fun of me because I don't know that from heart, but it's something like that. It will actually throw an error if you try to do that. So just wanted to tell you that.
Okay.
Any questions on kind of these conditionals and how they work? Cool, man. You're just blazing right through here. Maybe let me set up another scenario. So let's say I pass in 4. All right. All right. Is the if or the else block going to run on here?
The else?
You know what this
no, that's the if.
It's the if?
Yeah.
Can you explain why for those who are brand new to this?
So that's you're checking if the number of 4 is less than or equal to 10.
Perfect. And that's true, right? So
Yep.
these conditionals, what we check here is it's always become either true or false. And that's how the if else and Boolean logic works, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Cool. So let's have you jump in here. I'm gonna see if I can give you. Always freaks out when I try to do remote control from here.
So where is this little sandbox at? Because I see you've got the ability, you can do HTML, CSS,
Yeah.
and JavaScript.
Yeah, so this is codepin.io. So I'll type it in here. People can't see the codepin.io. And I can send you a link to this too.
Okay. Is this a free sandbox, or do you have to pay a
Yeah,
subscription?
it's free. It's free for like most of the functionality. If you want like private, they're called pens because it's a playpen, I guess, or I guess that's what they're playing off of, right? Sandbox. You have to pay for that, but I'm on a free version. So
Okay.